this week's episode of LevelUp Cyber. My name is Tony Bryan, your host and Executive Director of CyberUp. Looking forward to this conversation. It's been a week or so since I've recorded the show, but had an opportunity to meet our guest today recently and dive in and learn a little bit more about the importance of just the role that cybersecurity research plays in the overall kind of ecosystem and the function of a cybersecurity kind of best practices in a team. So let's just dive in. So Malav Vyas is our guest today. He joins us from California and Palo Alto Networks. I've had a great opportunity to meet you, Malav. I'd love for you to take a second, introduce yourself to our listeners and how you got to where you're at today.
Cool. Thanks, Tony, for giving me this opportunity to talk and give an advice to anyone who's listening and starting their career in this amazing field. So, my name is Malav. I have little over 5 years of experience in this domain. I started really early in the cybersecurity space. Like almost everyone, I wanted to hack Facebook and get free Wi-Fi forever. So that's how I got started in this field. I never got free Wi-Fi or Facebook access. But at the same time, I got to learn a lot about this field, that is cybersecurity, and amazing people that are here. And so I initially started with learning a lot about pen testing, website security, and eventually, after working with a really good company, which is SNDK Corporation, where I led several of product security efforts, I moved on to sunny Buffalo, where I got my taste for security research. I took that experience and continued working on security research, malware analysis, exploit development, all those good stuff for optics. And right now I'm doing the same for Palo Alto Networks. And it's a great experience working so far with Palo Alto Networks on security research.
So research is an area that I know I'm not overly familiar with. Obviously, I get the concept of research and what it is, but in terms of the world of a security team, it's something new for me that I've not necessarily seen a lot of jobs. So, what is a normal day in the life, of a cybersecurity researcher for somebody at a corporation or a company like Palo Alto?
So usually this time is divided, security researchers' time is divided between two things. One is purely research, which is just diving into any software, firmware, IoT device, or anything that can be exploited. So dive into that, figure out any reverse engineer, basically reverse engineer the firmware or binary, figure out if there are any vulnerabilities that you can exploit. So that's the one part. Another part is constantly delivering detections. So we also have to help out with product development and build any detections for any new attack or malware effort that is going on. We also help out with that. So that's kind of divided time. Take a lot of meetings, discuss design changes, stuff like that, all the boring stuff. And at the same time, once you have something concrete to present, for example, let's say that you find something really critical bug in Windows or something. You have to collaborate with a lot of procedures, go through a lot of procedures, go through PR, public relations, management. Then there is also a legal aspect involved before you can report and then get a CVE. We usually, once we have something actionable in our research, we publish a blog to Palo Alto's Unit 42. I'm sure you've heard about it. It's a research division inside the Palo Alto Networks. So we publish a blog and then submit the same research across various conferences that are in this space. So it's always fun to go on conferences, present, and meet a lot of people. So that's kind of a gist of what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Do you find, just out of my own curiosity, do you find that the research that you're doing is very proactive or very reactive in nature, right? Are you, because I feel like in my brain, there's really, you said two parts of the research, there's really two parts of, the threats, right? There's the threat after the fact, or trying to prevent the threat ahead of the fact. So in this opportunity, doing the research, are you focused on one or the other or both? How does that normally shake out?
It's usually both. So most of the part, we are only focusing on the proactive things. So let's say you're working for a company who specializes in IoT security or something like Linux OS security, cloud security, whatever. So a researcher's responsibility would be to seek out threats. So something that does not exist, you need to figure out if that is possible. Because most of the time, products are not concretely like 100% secure. Like design is not good. They are exposing secrets, something like that. They have glaring vulnerabilities. But at the same time, they are not public because no one ever thought of doing that, right? That does not mean like there is no publicly available exploit or vulnerability. That does not mean that that product is secure. So as a researcher, your responsibility is to figure out what is a critical product, what is a critical device or software that needs to be 100% secure. So you'll dive into it and figure out vulnerabilities on your own. And that's a major part. But in some cases, there are several threats. So one example would be a recent Frosty Goop malware campaign. So there's a war going on in Ukraine, I guess. I might be blurry on details, but one party used Frosty Goop malware to remotely turn off all thermostats. So if you remember, it's a really cold over there in Ukraine, and if someone just turns off all the thermostats in a facility, that can be a little life-threatening, right? So that was one of the incidents. So incidents like this, they need reactive approaches. So you need to just get on that project, reverse engineer, like get the sample of that malware, reverse engineer, figure out any details. Is there a way for us to like a novel way for us to detect this, secured, right? Because we don't want that to happen to anyone else, let alone your customers. So that's the reactive part. But if something like that happens, then it would be of the utmost priority to get that sorted.
Yeah. I'm gonna go to the front edge of like, okay, so like let's say I'm listening today and you've inspired me to like, man, that sounds interesting. I love to research and find some data. Like, what are some things I could do on my end to maybe set myself up for success for a security research type of role for a company like Palo Alto? Are there classes or certifications? What advice would you give to me to like break into doing similar things that you're doing?
First, it would be really critical to prepare yourself to just learn forever, right? So it's a research role. That means that you'll be learning, you'll be getting on some new things every day. Every day is a different day in research. So first, you need to get your fundamentals strong of computer science, networking, how programming works, how compilers are, how compiler works. And once you have figured out your domain of expertise, always helps to get on to YouTube, like start with YouTube and a couple of really good blogs to learn more about this field. So let's say right now you're inspired and you want to do vulnerability research for Windows applications. So I'm just giving an example here because from field to field, there are various domains, like countless domains of security, right? There's a lot of things you can do for research. There is network security, there is firewall security, there are countless things that you can do. So if you are talking about vulnerability research for Windows applications, you'll first need to understand how Windows works. You need to understand internals of it. You need to understand how it is actually programmed. Because to break something, to figure out a novel way to break into something, you first need to understand how it actually works. Unless you know all the design specifics, all the protections that are implemented, you won't be able to find a novel way. So as a first step, I would suggest just start pick any language, programming language that you like, and yeah, and get more expertise in it. And it always helps to have deep insights into network and operating systems for any of the role. So I was just use that from there.
That's great advice. Are there specific resources or do you have people that you follow maybe to like lean into, that give some really solid advice on just the research, right? Like I know there's great GRC folks and great pen testers. Are there, folks out there that kind of lead this research that would give some folks to follow and maybe jump in and learn a little bit more? Obviously yourself included in that mix, right? Any like kind of like notable researchers to jump into and start learning a little bit from?
Sure. There are two organizations who lead the forefront of all the vulnerability research. One is Zero Day Initiative, So zero-day initiative organizers spawn to own challenges for novel vulnerabilities and research into various devices. If I remember correctly, last year they even had a Tesla in their event where they invited several researchers, and whoever broke into the Tesla, they get to keep it. So after these events, a lot of researchers they write really detailed write-ups, all the blog posts, and a couple of them also cover YouTube videos. Right, one is live overflow. I would suggest anyone who is starting into the research go with the live overflow. They I don't know his real name, but he starts with the really intricate details. So he does not say he just doesn't say that send this payload and it's hacked. That's not how it works, right? He goes into why are we doing this, and what exactly makes this insecure. So those kind of background details always help. So live overflow, anything related to zero day initiative, and that is Google Project Zero. So Google Project Zero is Google's own team for security research. They that is James Forshaw, who's basically, if I had to name one person in this field, it would be James Forshaw, who figures out novel techniques in Windows exploitation and publishes those regularly through Google Zero Day team, right? And there is always Palo Alto Networks Unit 42. So Unit 42 researchers try to keep it really simple so anyone can understand, but at the same time deliver high quality research. So you
I
can
keep trying to go through. That's a great answer and great resource. I keep trying to go through, right? Like a lot of folks at that entry level are trying to break in, and nothing that you said that I heard is like, man, research is an entry level kind of role, right? Like I see you have an advanced degree. There's some levels of that. Do you find that maybe that research is an entry level type of role, or is that more of a long term? Like I'm going to work my way up to get into that and build a career around that role and function.
I would say it's somewhere in the middle. It's definitely not a place to start your career with, right? Because research requires a lot of background knowledge and a lot of skills that you can only get while working.
Yeah.
So let's say if you just want to start with the research, you would need like a couple of years of master's degree, then a couple of years to do your own research, get some research papers out, publications, and then you'll be eligible for some sort of security research role. But instead, if you just start with a simple pen testing related job, right? uh, if anyone has worked pen testing, they would know that pen testing is never really straightforward and simple. You have to be innovative. Uh, you will target will always throw some sort of curveballs that you need to find a way around. Any sort of pen testing, bug bounty, or any sort of like getting firm grasp of security concepts and computer science as a whole, that will help you get started. And if you are like me and don't want to waste the time and wait until you are wait for your first paycheck, if you don't want that, then it would be best to just start with a entry level role in pen testing.
Yeah, I like what I do like about the field of research and what you're doing is it presents itself as an easier way to show your work, right? Like a lot of times people struggle to show, like if I find an exploit, all I can really do is walk you through what I did. It's really hard for me to show you, right? So at least I think with the research aspect of it, there is a final deliverable, right? That's going to come that's going to describe your logic and your thought process and like, intended to share with other people, where I think it does really afford what you alluded to, a very solid kind of pathway to highlight your skills and to show others. And you could start that, you get that pen testing job and start to build out that research on your own in your free time and really just build out a really solid portfolio to make that transition into that space. So that's a really solid piece of advice. Anything you'd add to that? I mean, in terms of like, GitHub's always is a great tool, but if you don't know how to code, or you don't know how to like find the research, it really makes it hard to do. Have you found that coding languages has definitely helped? I know we talked a little bit about before we hopped on, but like, understanding code, and you alluded to earlier the ins and outs of how all the things works, right? Like, I'm I'm going to two-part this question.
Right.
A lot of times education's going fast, right? Colleges, community colleges. And so I feel like it's more, and even my program at CyberUp, we're very short-term credentials, skills-based. But what we're describing here, I don't necessarily feel like fits into that bucket, right? Because you can't just get a particular set of skills, but understand how all the things work to do the research, right? What advice would you give for the balance of knowing all the things and then not really knowing anything, and like building the foundation of like code and understanding how it all works to get to that end game? What's the, how do you balance that as a professional learner, right?
So that's a really good question. To both things. First, you need to understand, like, you have to be comfortable with not knowing things, right? First, once you're comfortable with not knowing things, that's where you'll get like comfortable learning around, right? For example, if you constantly learn, let's say I'm researching some sort of new protocol, right, for any IoT devices. If I'm not comfortable reading any sort of documentation, if I don't know what questions to ask, even if I'm just sitting in front of best scholars, if I don't know what questions to ask, then it's not worth it, right? Nothing good will come out of that. So you'll have to first make sure that you ask good questions and meet more people. Like that's what I tell everyone, that our industry, cybersecurity, is really amazing. If you walk up to any random person that you've never met and just go up to him and ask him question, if he knows anything, then he'll gladly dive into details. Like, everyone is really passionate about their work in this industry. That's what differs us from other industries, right? So everyone is really passionate. So even if they don't know about something, they'll point you to someone. So people are really great resource for starting into or doing any sort of research. For example, if your expertise lies into network security and you meet someone who's doing car security, automotive security, if you just walk up to him and ask any questions, he'll dive into more details, attend more workshops, events, and definitely that would help. And there are also research conferences. So different from DEF CON and Black Hat, definitely they are amazing. There are also educational conferences. I'm forgetting the word for here, but for those conferences was, for example, there is Usenix. These conferences make their research public. So there will be some PhD student or some doctor who spent like 3 to 4 years on working on the same research. So if you attend their workshops, if you attend their talks or PhD defenses, everything is public on YouTube for the channel Usenix, and you'll learn a lot. So that's like figuring out where and how you want to learn. That's a critical part. Once you've mastered those skills, once you are comfortable reading research papers, that's where you'll make most out of your career.
So I feel like we got to say the two letters that we've all come to grow and love is AI, right? What role do you think AI plays in jobs like security research roles moving forward, right? You have information, endless amounts of information that come to you near real time, right? Sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it's inaccurate, right? But could play a pretty important role and make things faster. What do you kind of predict, the future of this research transitions or transforms over the next couple of years as AI and, chatbots and things start to evolve and to become much more of an integral part of our day-to-day lives and our kind of corporate technology roles? What do you see that playing in the research side?
So I believe that AI would play a critical role in classification of threats, right? So right now, if we think about alerts and threats in a really big corporate environment, the main problem is not getting any detections. That's not the problem that they don't have enough detections. The problem is, how do you differentiate what's important and what's not? For example, let's say you're doing a pen test for a company. You find 150 CVs, known CVs, and vulnerability holes inside the network. 150 is still a small number, but for a mid-tier company, that could be anywhere in 500s or 600s, right? So your jobs and your responsibility ends there by providing them report. But the main challenge for companies starts from there. Once they have that report, once they have that number of CVs, how do you prioritize? How do you know what hole they should be fixing, right? Because once vulnerabilities have been identified, it's a really long process. Because if you think about it, you found a severe SQL injection, let's say, in a login portal of a website, which has millions of users every day. You can't just make that change in that website. You need to go through a couple of like multiple chains, right? You need to modify that code, get several approvals. You need to test that thoroughly, and then it makes into the production. So what I'm saying is that every vulnerability that you need to fix has human cost associated with it. So you need to make sure that you focus on right vulnerabilities first, like prioritizing on what to fix first. It's is as critical as identifying vulnerabilities. So let's say you provided them 600 vulnerabilities, and company can only fix like 10 a month. That way, they will have 60 vulnerabilities. Sorry, it will take 60 months for them to fix everything. And in that duration, there will be a lot more. And let's say something non-critical is prioritized first, and some high severity CVE, which is like of 10 CVSS score, yes, remote code execution and everything, is attended last, right? So that's the challenge that I think that AI can help us solve, figuring out what is exposed, what is critical to fix, what has real danger to confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So that's the area where AI will try to help us out.
I've never asked this question, and this is just sheer morbid personal curiosity. Who does AI help more, the good guys or the bad guys? Who do you think who has the advantage in this regard for AI as it gets better?
I would have to side with defenders on this one because it reduces their time a lot by a lot. For attackers, it also helps, right? Because I haven't used AI a lot on the attacking side. That could be a lot of efforts because I know that there are several reverse engineering tools. I definitely use LLM for reverse engineering a binary, making sense out of it. But it's not as mature enough to accurately help reverse engineer, find vulnerabilities. It's not as good because context limit on AI is a bit limited right now.
Yeah.
So number of tokens that you can pass to an LLM model right now is pretty limited. So to find accurate vulnerability, to have a control flow properly, like identifying source and sync, those kind of things require an AI to have complete view of the binary, and which would definitely most critical binary cases that would definitely help. That would definitely create an issue for token limit that we have for current LLM solutions. So in future, definitely it can help us from the attacker side, but right now it's proving really useful for defenders.
Yeah. Do you? We didn't. I don't also talk about the dark web very often, but I feel like I know a couple years ago, an event. There was a lot of new startup companies were making software and technology that had intended to like scrape the dark web and use data to analyze real threat attacks, and they claimed that they could predict an attack within a day or two that it was going to happen, or a breach that was going to happen by monitoring traffic on the dark web, right? So like I imagine the world of research, especially for Palo Alto, right? Like monitoring those things would be important for your customers. Do you find that you spend a lot of time there in the dark web and finding that stuff, or where are you? Yeah, like how does the dark web role play in this idea of research and data? Yeah, for companies.
That's a really good question, but several years ago, when I was really early in my career at cybersecurity, when I first learned about darknet and stuff like that, what horrible things that goes on there, I found myself a bit repelled from that. So since then, I haven't explored dark web at all, I would say. And recently, if I hear correctly, I've heard rumors and news that dark web is not what it used to be. Right, thanks to a lot of efforts from U.S. government, they stopped a lot of crime and a lot of horrible things that were going on in dark web. It's still it's not there. So from my understanding, I don't think dark web is as useful for predicting threats but I might be wrong because I've never done anything in that regards.
I think I've seen it once on a screen that somebody else pulled it on or something, but it's not something I've necessarily been interacted with or done anything with. What is the potential kind of career path for somebody in security research, right? Like, is there, I feel like is it more of an individual contributor type of role? Like, what is that, what does that structure look like on a research team, right, for a corporation?
So, uh, in security, job and careers, everything is a bit better than normal software engineering jobs, I would say. Current market is that indicating that software engineering demand for software engineers is a bit going down, but at the same time, it's rising for security researchers. So if you want to stand out from normal, like regular applicants, right? I would say go out of your way to learn more things, something that is not in your degree, something that is not on your career. And especially what I've seen is there is a critically high demand for someone who understands security as well as software, how development works, how development cycle works, what typically goes on in a product development, right? So if you don't understand how development process is done, if you then it might be a bit hard for you to do proper security for it. So that's why there is a really high demand for someone with both skills. So I would definitely suggest you understand software development life cycle. uh, you develop some skills in coding, not necessarily competitive coding, but at the same time, you should be able to read through someone else's code, figure out what's going on, and write a couple of your own as well. So that's one advice for the technical side. And there is also a pathway from research into the, let's say, more leadership roles if you are in that kind of situation. So I would say start out with something as an individual contributor, uh, build your way up to security researcher, and once you are in that role, assess the various threats that are going on in our space, what you can do, how you can build a product that can help customers protect, right, and without affecting their day-to-day operations. That's the critical part. Uh, you need to provide security without affecting any availability of the product, right? It should not be a slowdown or stuff like that. So that's the path you can follow to uh, build up to CISO. I'm still in the early stages, so I'm not too sure about how you can go about like a set path to CISO or someone in the management cycle, management roles. But yeah,
Yeah. Well, I think unfortunately a lot of companies haven't started to make those career tracks just yet, right? I've seen a few that, like what is that, you land here and I want to work my way up to here, there's still a lot of work to be done, I think, for better informed job descriptions for a lot of companies and really mapping out those career tracks to get us to full employment, right? Or at least as close to full employment as we possibly can. I was at an event this past week and there's a lot of people that don't think we ever get to full employment in this space. And I probably don't disagree with them because it never ends. You know what I mean? Like you're just going to constantly need some stuff, right? It's the role of research. And I think staying ahead of stuff is really, really important in here to have that level of success. Well, it's crazy. We're coming down to our tail end. I told you before we have fun, it happens every time. We get into a great conversation. And then you blink and you're at the window of kind of the mid of the show. But everybody gets the same last question. What advice would you give to somebody looking to level up their cybersecurity career?
meet more people, right? Meet more people, as many as you can, online or offline. Gather various thought processes. Ask everyone about their path. Ask everyone for advice and follow whatever you can. So we have amazing community in security research. There are a lot of professionals who would help you out. So I would suggest that meet everyone. Go to your local meetups, conferences, and attend talks, and see where it lands you.
That's really great advice. There's a lot of conferences that are out there, your Secure World, your DEF CONs, your B-Sides, ISACAs, ISC squared chapters. I'm a fan of InfraGard. It's a great way to plug into and see the law enforcement side, right? Does require a little bit of a, maybe not a background check, but they do, of course, kind of check a background if you're going to hang out with FBI folks, which is probably important. But a lot of great opportunities out there to learn and grow. So, man, what a great conversation, and a topic I knew very little about. Right, I think I've met one other researcher in my life, and he happened to work at he works at CompTIA still quite a few years ago, and just a great guy. And so, I appreciate the insights. I think I appreciate you just sharing maybe not an alternative career path within cyber, but a role that I think a lot of people haven't really thought to say, man, that makes a ton of sense. I love to read and research and understand how things work. And that is probably not even a blip on a lot of folks' radar. That is something they can continue to do as a career. So thanks for sharing your experience. Thanks for sharing just some great advice and some tips. I'd encourage everybody to reach out if you'd offer it if they have questions on LinkedIn to maybe reach out to you and take you up on your advice or follow what you had said. So any kind of parting words of wisdom for our listeners today?
You can ask any questions. You can connect me with on LinkedIn. I think you would link my LinkedIn on the post as well. So feel free to drop any questions. I'll love to help you out. And thanks a lot for inviting me and giving this opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time today. I appreciate it for everybody listening. Until next time, we'll see you guys soon. Have a great week.